Stranded with a space orc, Sera had read the diplomatic briefings on human crisis responses. Academic knowledge proved inadequate for direct observation. As their transport fell apart around them, atmospheric friction turning hull plating into molten streams, her human escort looked like he was reviewing lunch menus. "Entry's getting bumpy," Colt observed. His tone suggested mild inconvenience rather than imminent death. Sera's four-fingered hands clenched her restraint harness. Her knuckles showed pale blue through her skin. The human simply adjusted his equipment pack. He checked what appeared to be a wrist device, like he was documenting weather patterns instead of participating in a catastrophic crash. The impact drove consciousness from her. When alertness returned, she found herself surrounded by twisted metal. Emergency lighting cast everything in red. The air smelled of burning electronics mixed with atmospheric poisons that triggered immediate breathing problems. "Toxic air detected," she managed. She fumbled for her emergency breathing mask. Colt had already gotten out of his restraints. He was looking over their wreckage like a building inspector. He'd tied a piece of cloth around his nose and mouth. The same casual efficiency someone might use to adjust a collar. "Sulfur compounds, mostly," he said. He examined the hull breach with professional interest. "Smells worse than it actually is." Sera stared at him through her breathing mask. Her wrist scanner displayed readings that should have triggered immediate evacuation for any species with working survival instincts. The human was treating it like seasonal allergies. "Emergency beacon," she said, trying to follow standard procedures. "We need to. Communication array took damage in the crash." Colt ran his hands along twisted metal. He tested how strong it was, like a construction worker checking, building foundations. "Clean hull breach, though. Good engineering." "How long until rescue?" Sera's voice came out smaller than intended. "Standard protocol suggests 72 hours before they redirect resources," Colt said. He seemed to translate her unfinished question automatically. "Which means we're setting up temporary residence." Sera processed this information. Her heart responded with what her species recognized as pre-death panic. "We're going to die here." Colt looked at her with an expression that might have indicated amusement. Human facial expressions remained difficult for her to read accurately. "First deathworld experience?" he asked. "First assignment outside Velarian protected space," she admitted. "Earth rates class 14 on the danger scale," Colt said. He shouldered his pack with movements that suggested routine rather than emergency. "This place is actually an improvement." He headed toward the exit. Sera followed, emerging into an environment that immediately clarified why her people's alien planet studies had classified this world as unlivable. The sky showed the color of dried blood. Heavy clouds sparked with electrical storms that created continuous lightning patterns. The surface consisted of volcanic glass formations mixed with crystalline growths that cracked audibly underfoot. Heat vents released superheated vapor at random intervals across the visible landscape. "Scenic," Colt commented. He surveyed the hellscape with what appeared to be genuine appreciation. "Reminds me of home." "Your homeworld exceeds this level of danger?" Sera asked. "Yellowstone National Park has similar characteristics. This is basically Yellowstone with better air circulation." He pointed toward rock formations about half a mile away. "Cave system should work. Natural wind barriers, elevated drainage, defensive positioning before nocturnal predators begin hunting." Sera felt her breathing mask fog with stress-induced rapid breathing. "Nocturnal predators. Apex predators, actually. Pack hunters, about transport-sized, with acidic saliva and territorial behavior." Colt began hiking across terrain that should have required specialized equipment and extensive safety protocols, probably more afraid of us than we are of them. Sera stumbled after him. Her breathing equipment strained against exertion and terror. Meanwhile, Colt navigated the hazardous surface with the same casual confidence she'd observed him use while walking through space station corridors. "You're not using any protective equipment," she realized. "For what?" "Air toxins, radiation exposure, environmental, human filtering systems handle most of that," Colt said. He paused to examine an interesting mineral formation. "Takes significantly more than this to cause problems." By the time they reached the cave system, Sera had reached near exhaustion and complete terror. The rock formations looked like predator teeth. Every shadow suggested hidden threats. Colt examined the cave entrance with the same careful attention he'd applied to their crash site. Good airflow, stable structure, accessible water source. He nodded with what appeared to be professional satisfaction. "This will work." "Work for what?" "Temporary residence." He entered the cave system. He produced a light source that generated steady illumination. "Let's evaluate our options." The cave network proved more extensive than Sera had expected. Multiple chambers connected through narrow passages. Colt explored systematically. He made notes and placed small markers at strategic locations. "This chamber," he decided. He selected a space about 20 feet deep with a stream flowing along one wall. Good drainage, multiple exit routes, defensible entrance. Defensible against what threats? Whatever lives here. He was already unpacking equipment. He laid out items with practiced efficiency. "Nothing personal against local wildlife, but I don't share sleeping space." Sera watched with increasing amazement as Colt transformed the barren cave into something resembling livable space. From his pack, he produced tools that appeared primitive, but functioned with remarkable effectiveness. He built a fire ring using selected stones. He set up a ventilation system using reflective materials and natural air currents. He assembled what appeared to be a water cleaning system using the stream. "How do you know how to do these procedures?" "Standard survival training," Colt said. He tested his fire setup and coaxed flames from what appeared to be debris and dried organic matter. Every human child learns basic wilderness survival in school. Never know when it might prove useful. Your species teaches children to survive on deathworlds. We teach survival anywhere. The fire caught, filling the cave with warm light. Earth isn't particularly forgiving. If you can survive there, you can survive pretty much anywhere. As darkness fell outside, Sera began detecting sounds that made her press closer to the fire's warmth. Howls echoed across the landscape, clicking noises, whistles, something that resembled metal scraping against stone. "The nocturnal hunters," she whispered. "Probably." Colt was preparing what appeared to be dinner from his pack rations. "They'll lose interest once they determine we're not easy prey." "How can you stay so calm?" He looked at her. She detected something different in his expression, something that might have been gentleness. "Panic doesn't improve situations," he said simply. "And I've dealt with worse. Worse than this environment. Alaska. Ever been stalked by a brown bear? They're basically land-based apex predators with attitude problems and no fear of humans. At least these things probably haven't learned to open doors." Sera stared at him. "Your planet has predators that open doors. Some of them. That's why we invented locks." He handed her something that smelled surprisingly good. "Eat this. Not gourmet quality, but it maintains nutrition." The food proved to be processed protein that tasted better than most diplomatic rations she'd experienced. As she ate, she found herself watching Colt with new perspective. He wasn't particularly large by human standards. Average height and build according to her briefing materials. But he moved through this nightmare environment like he belonged here. More than that, he was caring for her with the same casual efficiency he applied to everything else. "Why did you volunteer for diplomatic escort duty?" she asked. "Good work. Gets me off Earth occasionally. Lets me see new places." Most species consider escort assignments punishment duty. Most species didn't evolve on a planet that actively tries to eliminate everything living on it. He settled across from her, fire between them. For humans, this is practically vacation time. Outside, something roared, a sound so deep and primal that Sera felt it resonate in her bones. She involuntarily moved closer to the fire and closer to Colt. "It's fine," he said quietly. "Fire keeps them away. Most predators have healthy respect for things that control flame. And if they don't," he gestured toward something beside his pack, a device she hadn't noticed previously, "then we convince them to develop respect." "What is that?" "Emergency flare gun, modified for defensive applications." His tone remained matter-of-fact. "Shoots magnesium charges hot enough to discourage pretty much anything. You modified emergency equipment into a weapon. You work with available materials." He added fuel to the fire. "Humans have been modifying tools since we figured out how to strike rocks together. It's our primary characteristic." As the night progressed, Sera found herself relaxing despite the alien sounds outside. Colt's calm confidence proved infectious. She began understanding that his casual attitude wasn't performance, it was genuine competence. "Tell me about Earth," she said. "What would you like to know?" "Is it really worse than this?" Colt considered the question seriously. "Depends on location. Some places are pleasant. Temperate climate, gentle weather, friendly wildlife. Other places," he gestured toward the cave entrance, "other places make this look like a resort. And humans live in those places. Some of us prefer them. There's something about hostile environments that brings out optimal human characteristics, forces creativity, adaptation, mutual care." Sera looked at him in the firelight and felt something shift in her chest. "Is that why you're taking care of me?" "I'm taking care of you because that's my assignment," he said simply, "but also because you're worth taking care of." The words affected her more than they should have. In Velarian culture, relationships developed through careful negotiation and practical compatibility assessment. The concept that someone would risk their life for her simply because she was worth it seemed foreign and overwhelming. "I don't understand your species," she admitted. "Most people don't." Colt banked the fire for the night. He ensured steady burning until morning. "We're pretty unusual, even by galactic standards." "How so?" "We form emotional attachments to almost anything. We'll risk our lives for complete strangers. We turn survival situations into bonding experiences." He looked at her across the dying flames. "We're probably the only species in the galaxy that could end up stranded on a deathworld and somehow find it romantic." Sera felt her cheeks warm. "Romantic? Consider it. We're alone together in a dangerous place, working as a team for survival, completely dependent on each other." His smile was gentle in the firelight. "If this was a human story, this is where we'd fall in love." Sera struggled for words. "That's completely irrational." "Yeah," Colt agreed. "That's what makes us space orcs." The next morning, Sera woke to the smell of cooking meat. Colt was crouched by the fire. He was tending what appeared to be fresh protein on an improvised cooking spit. "Where did you get that?" "One of the local predators decided to test our defenses last night," he said matter-of-factly. "Poor decision on its part." Sera sat up, alarmed. "Something attacked us. Around midnight. You slept through it." He rotated the meat with a stick. Small one, maybe large dog-sized. More curious than aggressive, but it got too close to the perimeter sensors. "You killed it. I discouraged it. Unfortunately, the discouragement proved permanent." He gestured to the meat. "Bright side is, now we know what local wildlife tastes like. You're going to eat a predator that tried to eat us. Circle of life." Colt offered her a portion of the cooked meat. "Actually tastes pretty good. Kind of like chicken, if chicken evolved to hunt in packs." Sera accepted the food cautiously and discovered he was accurate. It did taste remarkably similar to familiar poultry from her homeworld. "How do you know it's safe to eat?" Field scanner showed carbon-based protein with normal amino acid chains. No exotic toxins or incompatible biochemistry. He was already packing their camp with the same efficient movements she was learning to recognize. Plus, when in doubt, cook thoroughly. Heat breaks down most biological threats. As they prepared to leave the cave, Sera realized she felt different, less afraid. The night in the cave, watching Colt transform a hostile environment into something resembling safety, had altered her perspective. Where are we going? Higher elevation. I want better views of local geography, maybe spot landmarks that could assist rescue teams. He shouldered his pack and checked his scanner. Plus, elevation usually means better water sources and fewer large predators. The hike took them across terrain that should have been impossible to traverse. Colt navigated fields of razor-sharp volcanic glass, toxic steam vents, unstable ground that shifted underfoot. He moved like he'd done this countless times. He occasionally offered Sera assistance across particularly difficult sections. "You're not even breathing heavily," she observed during one brief rest stop. "Human heart and lung system is pretty efficient. We're built for endurance rather than speed." He was examining something on his scanner. "Our ancestors used to hunt by literally running prey to death. Just kept following until the target collapsed from exhaustion. That's horrifying. That's persistence hunting, very effective strategy against larger, faster prey." He pointed ahead to a rocky outcrop. "That's our destination. Natural observation post, defensible position, and what appears to be a freshwater spring." The climb to the outcrop consumed most of the morning, but the view from the top was spectacular. They could see for miles across the alien landscape. A patchwork of volcanic fields, crystalline forests, and steaming rivers that glowed with living light. "It's actually beautiful," Sera admitted. "Most dangerous places are." Colt was setting up some kind of signal device. Beauty and lethality tend to correlate in nature. Is that another human observation? Universal observation. The most gorgeous places on Earth are usually the ones that will kill you fastest. He activated the device, which began emitting a steady pulse of light. "There. That should be visible from orbit if anyone's looking. And if no one's looking, then we keep surviving until they do." He settled beside her on the rocky ledge. Could be worse places to be stranded. Sera looked at him, really examined him. She felt that strange shift in her chest again, stronger this time. "Why aren't you afraid? Who says I'm not afraid? You act like this is normal. For me, it kind of is." Colt's expression grew thoughtful. "I spent 2 years doing disaster relief on colony worlds. Earthquake zones, volcanic regions, areas hit by severe weather. You learn to adapt. But this is worse than a natural disaster." "No, this is just unfamiliar. Natural disasters are worse because they're unpredictable. This place has rules, dangerous rules, but consistent ones. Once you understand the rules, you can work with them." "What are the rules here?" "Stay hydrated, stay warm, stay alert. Avoid the big predators unless you can't. Don't eat anything that hasn't been tested. Keep moving during the day, find shelter at night." He smiled at her. "And take care of your partner. Partner, that's what you are, isn't it? We're in this together." Sera felt her breathing change. In Velarian culture, the word partner carried very specific romantic implications. "I'm not certain I understand human relationship terminology." "Then let me be more direct." Colt turned to face her fully. "I like you, Sera. I liked you before we crashed, and I like you more now. You're intelligent, you're brave, and you're adaptable. Plus, you haven't complained once about the accommodations." "The accommodations are terrible." "Exactly. Most people would be panicking by now." His expression was warm and genuine. "You're handling this like a professional. I'm terrified every moment, but you're still functioning. That's what matters." He reached over and took her hand, carefully, like he was concerned she might pull away. "Fear is normal. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's doing what needs to be done despite the fear." Sera looked down at their joined hands. His skin was warm and slightly rough, with small scars that spoke of a life lived actively. Her own hand looked delicate and pale by comparison. Your species really does find this romantic, doesn't it? Some of us do. His thumb traced gently across her knuckles. There's something about facing challenges together that creates bonds. Shared adversity, mutual dependence, working as a team toward survival. That's completely irrational. Most of the best things are. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the alien landscape stretch out below them. The signal device continued its steady pulse. A technological heartbeat against the wild beauty of the deathworld. Colt, yeah, if we get rescued. When we get rescued. When we get rescued, what happens then? Depends. What do you want to happen? Sera considered the question seriously. 2 days ago, she would have said she wanted to return to her safe, predictable life in Velarian space. Now, looking at this human who treated impossible situations like puzzles to be solved, she wasn't sure. I think, she said slowly, I'd like to see more of the galaxy, preferably with someone who knows how to survive anywhere. Colt's smile was brilliant. I know some places you might find interesting. Not all of them are trying to kill everything that lives there. Just most of them, the best ones, yeah. In the distance, something roared. One of the apex predators they'd been avoiding. But instead of fear, Sera felt a strange excitement. She was beginning to understand what Colt meant about finding beauty in dangerous places. Tell me about Alaska, she said, as Colt began describing a world of ice and snow and predators that had shaped his people into the galaxy's most adaptable species. Sera settled back against the warm stone. She let herself imagine a future full of adventures with this impossible human who treated deathworlds like home. The signal device pulsed steadily above them, calling for rescue. But for the first time since the crash, Sera wasn't entirely sure she wanted to be found. At least not too quickly. 3 days later, when the rescue ship finally spotted their signal and found them cooking breakfast over an open fire like they were on a camping trip, the Velarian captain would file a report describing the incident as impossible survival under impossible conditions. But Sera, watching Colt explain their improvised shelter system to the amazed rescue crew with the same casual competence he'd applied to everything else, thought the captain had missed the point entirely. It wasn't impossible survival. It was just humans being human. And somehow, that had become the most romantic thing she'd ever experienced. Later, when the rescue team's expert asked Colt how he'd managed to survive on a Class 13 deathworld for multiple days without proper equipment, he would shrug and say, "You work with what you have. Most problems aren't actually that complicated once you break them down." The expert would spend weeks trying to decode the deeper meaning behind this statement. Never quite grasping that for humans, there wasn't a deeper meaning. There was just the problem and the human approach to solving it. Methodically, practically, and with absolute confidence that a solution existed. Sera, listening to this exchange, would realize she'd fallen in love not just with Colt, but with the entire impossible species that had produced him. Humans, she would later write in her own report, don't survive hostile environments. They negotiate with them until the environment surrenders.